Today, in chapter 5, we are going to discuss about reinsurance issues. First, we're going to start with the definitions. The reinsurance is a transaction between primary or direct insurance company and the reinsurance company. Sometimes I may call primary insurance company as primary insurer, and then the insurance company I may call reinsurer. Typically, direct insurer pays a certain premium to reinsurer in exchange for a partial risk, which is the primary insurer taken from the its insurers. There are types of reinsurance we classified here based on the characteristics, various characteristics. The first, we're going to start with like a classification based on the characteristics of the transfer risk. It says a proportional reinsurance versus non-proportional reinsurance. The first, proportional reinsurance, sharing same percentage of premium and risk, which is going to be claim or loss, is called proportional reinsurance. There are two types of proportional reinsurance. The one is quota share reinsurance, and the other is like a surplus share reinsurance. A quota share reinsurance, in this scheme, a fixed amount of premium and risk loss is shared between direct insurer and the reinsurer. Say, for example, a quota share reinsurance contract specifies that 30% of quota share reinsurance goes to reinsurer. Under this contract, if the direct insurer takes $1,000 as a premium, then 30% of it goes to reinsurer. In this case, the insurance pays the insurance commission to direct insurer, covering its expense to write. So the commission covers the primary insurer or insurer's expense he spent to write this business. And if, say, there are $10,000 worth of claim occurs, then the insurer pays $3,000 to direct insurer for its share of risk, and of course that $7,000 goes to the direct insurer. This quota share insurance is the most simple scheme to operate. It's because the percentage of a share is from start fixed. However, it is the most expensive and inefficient scheme in sharing risk with the reinsurer, because a certain percentage of a premium goes directly to the reinsurer, and every claims related to cost should be shared with the reinsurer. Now, some reinsurer which doesn't pay those extra expenses to take care of quota share insurance, they specifically says that they don't do any business of this proportional reinsurance. They only do like non-proportional reinsurance. And that is certain the reinsurance company is called General Re in US. Next, the surplus share reinsurance. Sharing a fixed percentage of the risk with the reinsurer is the same with quota share reinsurance. However, the sharing percentage with the reinsurer varies by size of the risk. In this reinsurance contract, the amount of 1/9 is defined first, and then the reinsurer decides how many lines it will take. Say we define 1/9 is $1 million, and the reinsurer takes up to 5 lines over base 1/9, which is taken by direct insurer fully. When the direct insurer takes a risk with less than $1 million of insured amount, the direct insurer takes 100% of the risk. Nothing goes to reinsurer. However, when the direct insurer takes a risk with an insured amount of 5 million, for example, then out of 5 million, the direct insurer takes 20% because it takes 1 million out of 5 million. Reinsurer takes 80% of 4 million. Since the direct insurer takes all the risk when the insured amount is less than a predetermined amount, the direct insurer takes more risk than the case with the quota share reinsurance. So this is a little more advanced scheme to do the reinsurance transactions. Now we discuss about the non-proportional reinsurance. The non-proportional reinsurance is transacted without any consideration for premium side. Only consideration is risk or loss side. Here loss means the claim. There are two types of major non-proportional reinsurance. The one is excessive loss, and the other is a stop loss agreement. First, we discuss about excessive loss reinsurance. In excessive loss reinsurance is the most frequently used non-proportional reinsurance. Here, in excessive loss reinsurance, the threshold loss amount is set. Then the claim amount, which is larger than the threshold loss, the reinsurer covers, and the claim amount, which is less than the threshold loss, the direct insurer covers. Say the threshold loss is set as $1 million. If a claim occurs with an amount of 500,000, then the direct insurer pays all. Nothing reinsurer involved here. However, if a claim occurs with an amount of $2 million, then the direct insurer pays $1 million and the reinsurer pays $1 million under the condition that the reinsurer agrees to pay up to 5 billion excess of 1 million. Contrary to the proportional reinsurance, the rate for excessive loss coverage is determined and negotiated between the two parties, independent of direct insurance conditions. So this scheme is a more advanced scheme compared to the quota share agreement. So here the actuary has to involved to decide the appropriate rate for these excessive loss coverages. Typically, these types of excessive loss coverage provides up to limit only once. In our case, up to 5 million. Therefore, if there is any claim occurs when it is the threshold, the direct insurer has to reinstate the coverages. The rate for these coverages only consider the probability of such loss occurs only once, whether the value of moved between $1 million and 6 million, which is not the way actuary does the rating. So this is just more rate decided by the underwriter. This is kind of underwriting way of setting rate, I would say. For example, if the probability of such loss occurring is 0.01 with the mode value of 2 million, then the loss cost is going to be 0.01 times 1 million. With the reinsurance expense of 15%, the excessive loss premium is going to be $11,765. Next, we're going to discuss some stop loss reinsurance. Instead of per loss threshold, the stop loss reinsurance contains the total loss threshold for reinsurance period. Like if the total loss maybe with the per loss threshold exceeds like 10 million, or if the loss ratio exceeds certain percentages, reinsurance pays all up to certain limit. Because of this large amount of loss could be paid by reinsurer, it is kind of an expensive reinsurance program in terms of rate. So it's occurs very rarely because it's this kind of pretty expensive scheme to use. And now we're going to discuss about the types of reinsurance classified based on the range of contract. There's facultative reinsurance and then automobile speculative reinsurance and treaty reinsurance in here. The facultative reinsurance, this type of reinsurance is constructed by a primary insurance policy base, one policy by one policy. I would say reinsurance can decline any primary insurance policy if it doesn't fit into its underwriting philosophy or guidelines, or whatever reasons. If the reinsurer wants to decline a policy, it can do it. The second, automatic facultative reinsurance. In this reinsurance agreement, reinsurers takes most of the primary insurance policies if they fit into its guideline. However, the reinsurer still is able to decline a certain policy if it doesn't like it or it doesn't fit into their guidelines. And there is some, if there's any unique cases that underwriter doesn't want to reinsure. Now there's treaty reinsurance. Under this type of reinsurance contract, a certain group of policies is covered. Reinsurer can set up guidelines of acceptance. The typical way of grouping is line, for example, like a liability line, or fire line, or property lines, or subline of business. The reinsurer may specify a certain types of exceptions, which it doesn't provide coverages. Pollution-related coverage is the routinely excluded from treaty insurance. The types of reinsurance classified based on the transaction scheme. There's a direct insurance contract versus broker reinsurance contract. In direct insurance contract, reinsurance contract transaction occurs between reinsurer and primary insurer directly. There isn't any intermediary involved. Relatively simple reinsurance transactions can be done through this scheme to save a brokerage fee. Next, brokered reinsurance contract. In this case, a broker acts as an intermediary to connect a direct insurer and reinsurer or reinsurers. If there are multiple reinsurers participating in a reinsurance contract, typically happens in a treaty reinsurance business, it is necessary to have a broker to manage the contract. In the excess of loss contract, a certain reinsurer wants to provide coverages only a partial portion of it. Then it is necessary to find additional reinsurers. Many cases, excess of loss coverage is layered like 4 million excess of 1 million, 10 million excess of 5 million, and 50 million excess of 10 million. Some reinsurers want to participate in a certain layer only with a certain percentage, like 10%, like 10 million excess of 5 billion of 10%. In this case, the direct insurer has to fill the rest with the assistance from a broker. If a broker cannot fill all of them, even though direct insurer wants to reinsure, because there's no reinsurance, the primary insurer has to take or swallow the percentage left over because there's no more reinsurance contract. Lastly, we're going to discuss some financial insurance. A direct insurer requires to hold a certain a certain amount of capital to support its business, writing to prevent from bankruptcies due to bad results, large amount of loss occurring. That's why it's called like capital-based, risk-based capital, which is the way of measuring how much capital the insurance company required to write businesses. And also there's Solvency II, which is a similar role to set certain amount of capital, preventing from the insurance company being bankrupt. To maintain a certain ratio of net premium writing to the capital, the direct insurer could utilize reinsurance. Any reinsurance transactions which doesn't include any risk transfer is called financial insurance. Since a pure or total financial insurance contract is not treated as reinsurance contract, normally a small portion of risk transfer is included to satisfy the insurance contract condition. The typical financial insurance contract contains a multi-year contract term, say 5-year stop-loss contract with a threshold loss ratio of 70%. If the first year loss ratio is 65%, then the reinsurer pays back 3.5% and hold 1.5% for future deteriorations. If the second year loss ratio is 68%, then at this time, the insurance pays back 0.5% to the direct insurer. If the third year loss ratio is 72%, then the reinsurer pays back 2% from their 3% withholding. If the fourth year loss ratio is 71%, then reinsurer pays back 1% from 0.5% withholding and 0.5% from the insurer's its own fund. If the last year loss ratio is 67%, then the insurer pays back 2.5% and takes 0.5% back to fill up its fund, and the contract is closed. If the last year loss ratio is higher than 69.5% or reinsurance portion position is negative, then the contract should be renewed to cover these insurance negative positions. So this is kind of the example of the financial reinsurance. Okay, this is last sessions for this lecture. To see again, goodbye everybody. Thank you for listening to my lectures. Bye-bye.